Wow. I waited such a long time for this day. Look at this, look at this. People told me not to write JavaScript to learn a real programming language. I would be on a flat stage then. Who wants to be on a flat stage? So I've done JavaScript quite a long time, which even turns into modeling. So it's not even programming anymore, it's just sort of bringing the word out there. But I actually think I'm in good company. So there's more of us. Maybe 10 t-shirts in total or something like that. And I think what's also fun is whatever you do in life, and programming or anything else, is that as soon as you do it, people look at it, it's like, well, I think I've seen this before. So I think this is kind of the way I approach programming, but I think it's also the way anything is. And a picture was taken of me this summer with me and my daughters swimming. And then someone looked at the picture like, I've seen this picture before. You look like a monkey. So I think whatever you do, you're never going to be truly original. You're just going to do it with a slightly different perspective. And also being Swedish, you need to learn some special rules how things actually work in Sweden. And most of the time we go around and we're terrified. Because if you grow up and you see warning signs like these, you can't touch anything. The people behind these ones are genius. You know, touch the table, we're going to crush your head. And that's good, right? You're afraid, but in control. So part of my work at Mozilla is that I run the Mozilla Hacks blog. And the idea with the Mozilla Hacks blog is to have good articles for people building things for the open web or building things using open source. So it's not only Mozilla stuff, it's anything that would be interesting to me or any web developer out there. And we've been pushing that really hard. So actually, within the last 2 years, we'd had 350 posts. So it's basically one new article every second day, which actually pretty good content. I'm slightly biased, but hey. So about this talk, I thought I'd start at the end of explaining the Kubler-Ross model. So the Kubler-Ross model is about the 5 stages of grief, or basically the 5 stages before you die. I know it's a good pick-me-up topic in the morning, so it's going to be a really cheerful moment. And these 5 stages are denial, anger, bargaining, and eventually it turns into depression, and then acceptance. And you look at this and you start thinking about it, and it's like, I recognize this from something. This is the 5 stages of working as a developer. Every day, every hour, you go through sort of hope, anger, giving up, and then sort of just accepting it. So you kind of start in the denial phase. Someone presents you with a project like, this is going to do, it's going to be amazing, and you look at the project idea and you sort of know it's not going to fly. And especially, I worked as a consultant a really long time, so of course, they usually hook you up with a kick-ass team to deliver something that has never been seen before. And, what can you do, right? You need to make money, you need to live. So it kind of starts with anger. And if you look at the different phases, it starts with all this about yourself. Why me? This is not fair. Why is it happening to me specifically? And of course, the normal thing, blame. How can I, or who could I blame for this? And how could I blame them? So you sort of lash out at people around you. You get really angry and you just go crazy for it. And it's usually kind of misguided anger. Someone that doesn't really deserve it just gets in the way. But anger doesn't really solve things. So you get to the next phase. You get to bargaining. And with bargaining, you start to find ways, to find compromises. Like I would do anything for a few more years to live, or I would give all the money I have, or something like that. So you start looking at your project, and it doesn't look that bad. You see something that other people don't see. It's like, sure, we can solve this somehow. And I think especially the engineering mind is really interesting because you're trying to explain everything with logic. So you're really looking for correlation. So you start looking at facts. So you see, how many movies did Nicolas Cage make, and how many people drowned that year? And when you have that connection, it kind of makes sense. And that's what you need, right? You need logic. You need an explanation for everything you do. But you know, when data doesn't work anymore, you get depressed. It's, you know, I'm so sad. Why should I even bother? I can't even fix this. So you sort of just sink into yourself and you just take it in. And finally, you reach the final stage of acceptance. Like, he's gone. There's nothing I can do. It's over. I don't know why you would do this to the poor tiger. So you sort of think that, okay, I'll accept this. It's going to be okay. I can't fight this. I, you know, just join forces or accept it. And when you're working as a developer, you know, like Mike West at Google says, which I like we're all idiots with deadlines. So in our minds, we might know what the right thing is or how to fix it. But in practice, it's like, yeah, you sort of just look at a project and just jump right in. And that's what you can do. And that's usually how it ends up. So if we look at acceptance, and look at acceptance with a twist, I do want to talk about the Firefox developer tools. So this is more of a learning experience with working for Mozilla and working with the Firefox developer tools, and sort of where we've been coming from and the things that have been happening along the line. So of course you start with the phase of denial. Of course everyone knows about the built-in developer tools in Firefox, you know, right? No. No, they don't. There's not really much you can do about it, so of course you get angry, you start blaming other people. It's like, what do you mean native tools? Firebug? Well, yeah, 10 years ago. It's still there, it's still being developed, but you know, a lot of things have happened. And then you start bargaining, you know, okay, what can we do around the tools? So you start with anything to please everyone. Make it more like Firebug. We want to have parity with all the different features in the Chrome dev tools. We want to have the same keyboard shortcuts, etc. You know, as a developer, when you sort of try and please everyone in the same thing, you do something that you weren't really meant to do. You just play along, and it all goes to hell in a way that mankind was never meant to go. That must have been a good party. So you start doing things. You have storage inspectors, you have console.table, and other things like that. But it doesn't help. You sort of just take it in. This is the way it is. Okay, there's not much I can do about it. And of course, you know, but when you're depressed, it's more like, well, no one notices. We do all these kick-ass things. You all start in the end where it's, you know, not that good, but you make things better and better. But people just don't see it or just don't appreciate it. And then it's also interesting that people have a certain mindset. Like people would, if they started developing a long time ago, Internet Explorer is evil, and they will keep on believing that till the day they die. And when people sort of make the switch or make an opinion on something, it just sticks there. Kind of same thing with the Chrome DevTools. Like if people like the Chrome DevTools one, they just keep on liking it. And you even get to the point where we have friends at Google sort of defending us in our channels against the Chrome DevTools fanboys, which is more like, no, actually, they're doing really well, and they did this, and that as well. And it's all about awareness and all about how you choose to look at things. So with the DevTools, we came to the point of acceptance, but acceptance with a twist. So this is the way it is. People think Chrome is better. Our tools need more work. So what can we do about that? How can we change things, and how can we actually make it better? How can we adapt to all the feedback we're getting and use our strengths? How are we different? We're Mozilla, we're not that big, we're not that many people. How can we sort of collate all these forces into doing something better? So we started looking at the three options we had. What are we doing good? Okay, we're good at blogging, we're good at sharing information, and not only, oh, look at this shiny stuff, and then it goes away, but actually explaining how things work and go into detail. Good, we have that. we need to find a good way to collect developer feedback. How can we find out what developers actually want? You can sort of listen to people on Twitter, but the way Twitter works is usually that people with the biggest amount of followers, and also the people who scream the loudest, they get their will. Which is not really good, because you're going to have people really, really strong about things, but it doesn't necessarily represent regular developers or all the developers out there. How do you get a saying if you have 37 followers and you live in Ukraine? So how can we balance this? How can you get a good level of feedback? And of course, the third part, what features should we actually look at? And how should we implement them? So we started with the Mozilla Hacks blog. So way back, we used to have posts on the Hacks blog, which was basically just a list of links. So, you know, this is the bug in Bugzilla to do this. This is the bug in Bugzilla to do this, or we implemented this. And if you ever use Bugzilla, the user experience is like putting out a campfire with your face. It's good information, and you just sort of reach results, but it's not that nice getting there. So Bugzilla is great for its kind of follow-up for developers on all the details. But if you want to have broad feedback from people, you don't want it to take half an hour to just fill in one idea or one detail. So looking at the different feedback channels that we could use, and the normal thing, you know, not invented here, should we build our own, etc. Started looking around, and we chose to go with something called user voice. So on user voice, we developed a feedback channel where people could go and give feedback, to be completely open and transparent about it. And the key parts to me about this as well was to be transparent about everything we do. So it's not like, well, it's going to be in the next version, and that's kind of it, right? So it's more like people could have any idea or any proposal for in which direction we should move. And same thing as developing something in open on GitHub. Same thing here. You can see the progress as it goes along. What's the current state? Are we going to build this? Are we going to implement this? And even harder, which are the things we're declining? Because it's important to also stand up and say, no, you know, thank you for your idea, but this is not going to happen. So people know, instead of just keeping some false hope up forever, and it never gets there. And to the point of user experience, I wanted it to be as easy as possible. So if you have an idea, you could go there, and you have one text field. That's it. There's no sign up. You don't have to create an account or, you know, enter your credit card details or kind of a Facebook login when they need to know about all your friends when you went to grade school. Nothing. Just enter your idea. The only other thing when you submit your idea is that you enter an email address. And the only thing with the email address is to be able to follow up. Basically to reconnect with them, to keep people in the loop, what's happening. Are we building this? What's the current state right now? What are the next steps we're looking at? And of course, when you start entering an idea, you also have suggestions, because you don't want to have tons of duplicates. So if you start entering certain keywords, like inspector, you're going to see all the different things matching that. So you can see that this, and that has already been suggested. So it's not only about suggesting ideas, and to get the true democratic approach here is that you can also vote. So you have 10 votes per person, so you can go in and you can see, well, this CSS inspector, for instance, this would be great, and you would vote for that. So it's kind of a way of crowdsourcing which features to build where everyone's equal. It doesn't matter if you invented JavaScript or if you just started programming, you have the same amount of say, like, this is important to me, this actually matters. And also to respect that they care enough to take their time to give their input. If people give input and you don't, well, first accept it, but then also reconnect with them and acknowledge that you actually listen to them, it's pointless. Pretending to listen, there's no idea in that. And there's way too much of that happening out there. And naturally having a good search as well. So you can search through all the different ideas and you get all the different results and see what's happening with them. And I think it's also sort of cutting out all the middlemen in here. Because if people give feedback, we want to be speaking directly with them. We're not that many, but we think it's worth our time connecting directly with people. So we have the product managers, the developers, etc. for dev tools directly talking to you. Because usually the approach is you tweet to someone in a certain team, like, Firefox sucks, which is very constructive. And it doesn't really help. So in this sense, we can both reconnect, but we can also show it to everyone else. Like, this is what we said right now. It's on the roadmap, and it's actually us talking to you, not some representative that we put out there, an intern that's here over the summer. And one thing you learn as well is that when you start talking to people, is that, surprisingly, people don't perceive things the same way, and they don't use terms the same way. And that's good to know, because you're going to end up in some situation where you don't really express what you meant to express. And especially developers like acronyms, and they could be anything. And of course, the final step, who would be the people that you would put to man this forum, this feedback channel? Well, of course, you pick a Canadian and a Swede, because you couldn't get even more neutral. We didn't have a Swiss person, otherwise we would be home now. Which was great. And it's just, keep on acknowledging, keep on talking to people. And the amazing thing, which I'm so extremely happy about, is that the amount of spam or just whining or complaining has been almost non-existent. We've gotten so many ideas, and people are actually just suggesting things. They're constructive about it. Of course, you get the off one, but it has been so small and so little. I mean, if you look at YouTube comments or something like that, that's kind of the level you would expect. But no, it's been extremely helpful. So we started evaluating that. So we had the hacks blog, and we started to write more detailed articles outlining every feature, how you work with it, to have videos, to have screenshots, etc., and proper walkthroughs. So with the blog, 6 weeks after we launched the feedback channels, we shipped the first ideas in Firefox. 6 weeks, and it's in product. And I think that's amazing. And I think that's the kind of thing you need to do, not just, yeah, that's a great idea, let's see in 3 years. It's like, no, this is kick-ass. We have to do this, and we have to do this now. You asked for this, and you deserve this, and we should build this for you. So far, on user voice, we had 277 different ideas, over 3,000 votes, and 166 comments. And great discussions and great ideas. And for every new release of Firefox right now and in the dev tools, a number of the features in there are coming directly from these ideas. They might be things that we thought about, but we just didn't know how important it was to developers. And it's crucial also in being able to just prioritize things. Like, sure, we can do console.table, but does it mean that much to you? Yes, it does. Lots of votes. OK, go for it. Just build it. And of course, the last part here is features. What features should we build to, of course, sort of reach a certain parity with other competitors, but also which features can we do more unique, and then also show off how powerful the web is. So one thing we started with was the web audio editor. And no screenshot is going to be fair to it. But you have tons of details in how you can just control and debug audio in the browser. And the different sound nodes, and well, basically everything that's going on. And we also looked at event listeners pop-ups. So if you do an inspect element, you got the EV things next to the element, and you can see, OK, there's one or several events attached to this node right now. And you can find out all the information, the code about it, whether it's bubbling or not, which DOM standards in. And people saw this, and again, coming from ideas, like, this is great, but what about libraries? We use jQuery, and if you debug jQuery, you only get a reference to the wrapper function, which is, well, remotely interesting, but it doesn't help you. It doesn't show what your code is going to run at that moment with that event. So we added jQuery event binding. So we sort of go all the way with those events. So if there's an event that has been applied with jQuery, we're not showing the wrapper. We dig through the wrapper into your actual code and showing what's going to be run at that time. Then we also have the CSS transform highlighter. And the transform highlighter is, when you build things, you can also see that, okay, we're going to do this CSS transform right now, but how is actually going to morph? What's the easing here? And with the highlighter, you can look at all these different things, and you can just get all the different paths and crossbars, and you can see, well, you start here, and this is how it's going to twist and turn, and at the end of this, it's going to end up right here. And then we also added the cubic bezier editor. So, you know, we're all great at math, of course. But something like this is just easy for yourself to just look at something. Well, if I try this, if I skew this, if I change this, what's the result? How it's going to be? How it's going to look? So you can just test things quickly. Then, of course, you can spend the time to fine-tune every detail in there. But just a quick way of seeing how it actually works, or if you have a color transformation or something like that. And talking about keyboard shortcuts, we have a lot of settings in the DevTools where we want to adapt things to the specific developer needs. And it kind of like, as soon as you try out a new tool, you just max out every setting and see what happens. And while interesting, it might not be the best experience for you. So you have all these different settings, and we're looking at keyboard shortcuts. And so what do developers use to build things? I mean, do they build anything or everything in the DevTools, or do they use other things? And the most common editors that we came across was Vim, Emacs, and Sublime Text. So we implemented the keyboard shortcuts that you prefer to use in your favorite editor in the DevTools as well. So if you like Vim, go on. Use the same approach, the same keyboard shortcuts directly in the DevTools. And one thing that we also just added was the Selector preview. And I think starting out, before Firebug, I mean, you would just guess. You would change something in the CSS and see what you broke, and then you would find the thing. And then Firebug came along and it was amazing. And now with the Selector preview, you can have different classes or different styles, and you're going to highlight all the different elements in the page that matches this style. So it's not only inspect element anymore, it's just inspect this element and any other element that will have the same CSS applied to it, which is great. And all of this is sort of targeted at just trying to make sure that you're as focused as possible and things goes as fast as possible. I mean, that's the idea with DevTools. How can we help you build something faster? How can we help you spend your time coding some cool shit instead of just trying to figure out what the hell is going on? And we started doing this, and what has happened since we started, I think during this year, slightly longer, is that people who see the Firefox DevTools as their primary tool has increased 6%. And to me, that's a huge number. That's massive, because if you looked at the landscape before we started pushing this, it looked to be very still. And I think that's the sort of key approach thing to this. Like, when you start doing something like this, I mean, back in, well, 99 or something like that, Internet Explorer had 98% of the market. And what should you do then? Should you just give up, lay down and die, or try and do something about it? And it's been the same approach here. Like, Chrome DevTools, they're great. We want to be better. How can we actually make them better? And especially, and I think this is for me a key thing, and what really drives me with working for Mozilla, is that we can do something differently. Not necessarily a stakeholder that we need to report to. So like, okay, let's set the developer interest first. How can we make this key for developers? How can we do something that's completely unique? So there's one more thing about the DevTools, one more new thing. And that's the Firefox Tools Adapter. And the Firefox Tools Adapter will allow you to use the Firefox DevTools to debug Firefox and Chrome and Safari and iOS. All the different platforms. Yes. All the different platforms. And I think this is unique, right? I don't know how many players would actually build tools to make things work better in a competitor's product. And I think these are the things that we have to do. Like, if you sort of forget about pride, forget about other things, what's the actual developer landscape? What are the problems you're facing right now? Yeah, it's a shitload of devices. Okay, how do we access Android? How do we access iOS? And iOS is a different kind of beast. And eventually, without saying too much, I mean, we're looking into IE as well. What can we do with IE? How can we utilize the different protocols for the different browsers and the different devices to target all of them? So right now, it's in the latest nightly builds of Firefox, this tool. So on MDN, which is the best resource in the world, it's just a fact. I'm not even questioning it. I'm just saying that in passing. On MDN, you have all the different instructions to try this out. So currently, what we sort of offer publicly, and we're trying more things as well, is Chrome on Android and Safari on iOS. The Safari on iOS things only works on Linux and Mac right now. There are ways in Windows to make it work, but it's just not sort of stable enough to actually properly expose it. And I think with all these different things and how you approach things, I think it's just about trying to change the mindset. How can you make sure that you actually adapt? How can you make sure that you build better things and actually care to developers? And I think that's the thing we need to do from the Mozilla perspective, but I think that's the thing you will need to do as a developer. Instead of just accepting, like, well, this is the way it is, I want something better. So what we can do from our end is that we can open this up for you. We can build whatever you want and adapt it to your needs, but you need to tell us. Just whining or not using something doesn't help. We're completely open to be approached about anything, and we can build this for you. And the idea with talking about this as well, this is not only about use the dev tools, that would be great, but it's about your mindset as well. In all your different jobs and all the different things you do, you have two options. You can either just accept the way things are with the weird team setup that you might end up in, or you can accept that you actually have the power to change it. You can make things better. You can be freaking awesome, and that's up to you and no one else. So don't accept, but accept the power to do things better. Thank you.
Well, I have to say, I had a lot of expectations about this conference, but one thing I didn't expect is to actually be converted to Firefox. I mean, am I the only one here? Thank you.
Hold me.
It blew my mind, seriously. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Excellent talk.
Thank you.
Great. Well, now's the time when you get to learn about how the Swedes love, love, love cakes, and then you get to wonder, why aren't they all fat? Because they're always eating fika all the time. So we're going to take a break. It is now 11. We'll meet back here at 11:30, so please just exit where you came from and enjoy. And remember, this man's available for questions, right?
Yes.
Cool. Do they have to say anything when they come up to you?
They have to be nice and not talk about Angular.
There you go. Alrighty. Woo!